Okay, guys. So we are talking all about buyers and the process from when you meet with them to get them under contract. And we're going to try to just go through this rather quickly and touch on some things, because it's really, 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 really important in this market that you are thoughtful of how you work with your buyers, because otherwise they're going to get burnt out and they're going to fire you as an agent and they're going to want to work with somebody else. And we know that because we are in open houses where sometimes people are like, yeah, well, I'm under contract with somebody, but I keep losing. What would it be like to work with you? Okay. It's really important. Okay. This is people's lives, it's people's money. Be thoughtful about how you are working with your buyers. So I have Sara here who does a ton of volume, sold over 30 million last year, and works mostly with buyers. You have listings too, but she actually is my buyer's agent too. I only do listings. So we work a lot in tandem together to get people under contract, because if you don't find them a home, I don't have a job. So we're serious about finding them homes.
And we've picked up buyers at open houses before to that reason. I have somebody pending right now who I met consistently at open houses, and they just said, they told me kind of their sob story that they kept losing in multiples last year and they felt like their agent wasn't experienced and didn't really know what they were doing. And I said, okay, that's great. Let's meet for coffee. And then here we are and we're under contract. So it definitely is something where they're interviewing us all the time.
And you do have to be careful. So if someone's under contract, there's certain things, and I'm not going to go over that, but there's certain things that you can't discuss. If someone reaches out to you, you can talk to them about your marketing plan or how you work. But if they're under contract, you have to be careful. I just talked to our broker, Andy, about this. You can meet with people because they've reached out to you. But you do have to be very careful. Okay. So let's talk through the whole process of getting a buyer. So you have a buyer, and we believe in meeting with people in person at a coffee shop or whatever it is. Meet with them and go over what are the things when you do that? What does that look like? And what are the things that you go over with people when you meet with them?
So I would say we're for like example purposes, this is just a very like standard buyer. We had an example last night with somebody who kept asking questions. And my goal is to always either get them on the phone or meet with them in person. Because I feel like if you don't do one of those to start with, you're going to lose control right away. And the buyer's going to take control. And once the buyers have control, then the whole process is just kind of like derailed into disaster. So my first step is to always get them on the phone and have a very informational, just very basic conversation, which I think is pretty just like obvious that that's what you do, or meet with them in person. Because obviously if you can meet with them in person, you're going to start to build rapport and they're going to start to trust you if they don't already. So it's one of the two. And if they continue to, so for example, we had someone yesterday who reached out to Kelly directly for buyer representation. And she kept asking questions about, can I see pictures? Can I see X, Y, and Z? Nope. When can we meet on the phone? When can we talk on the phone? We need to set kind of the expectations of how this is going to go and that we're going to lead and not necessarily they are.
Otherwise you can show buyers a million properties and get burnt out, right? Like there is a process. So, okay. So let's talk about, okay. So you meet with somebody, what is that? You're at a coffee shop. What does that look like? And what are the things that you're going to talk through?
So, coffee shop is ideal because then again, you can build rapport. Not everybody wants to because people have busy lives and whatever. And I get that. But if we are meeting in person, I like to talk about just kind of preliminary things. What are their pain points? Obviously they're moving for a reason. Even if they say they don't have a timeline, there is some sort of a timeline, otherwise we wouldn't be meeting. So I try to figure out what it is that is the driving force. Is it that they're having a baby? Is it that they're having a divorce? Is it that they've got a dog and now they need more space? What is the reason that has them thinking of moving? And then depending on what that is kind of drives the timeline, because if it's a baby, okay, do you want to move before or after the baby? Because if it's before, then we have a very set timeline. If it's after, then we have a very set timeline. If they're like, well, we don't really know 100%. Do you have kids? Do you want to move before or after school? So a lot of the times it's just talking through with them, like what their timeline is, even though they may not necessarily know. Sometimes people are like, this is our timeline. This is what we need to do. And then that's ideal because then we don't have to figure it out for them. But first things first is timeline, because then we know what we need to do from there. Because if it's a sooner timeline, then it's getting our ducks in a row. Have you talked to a lender? Here's our preferred lenders. And then we kind of work backwards from there.
Okay, so timeline, and then let's talk about criteria. So
Yes.
timeline and then their criteria and getting them set up on a search.
Yep.
And sometimes they're so wide,
Yep.
they have a million cities.
Yep.
And it was always my goal, like okay, we have 10 cities.
Right,
And then you saw, we're going to see some, but when you decide you don't want to live in Prior Lake, let me know, because I'm going to take that off,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Because I don't want to bombard you with all these listings.
Yep.
So it's getting them set up on a search,
Yep.
right? Getting them set up on a search too. And then how do you talk to them about like what the process is? So when you find a home, like what's the process?
So purchase agreement. So even if somebody has bought and sold 4 times, I don't want them to think that I don't recognize that they've done this before, because, people who bought before, they're like, oh, I've done this before. Like, I know what I'm doing. And so I always say, okay, let's say that you're a move up buyer. I know that you've bought before, but the market changes like every 30 days, and kind of what we're seeing, or a week, and everything that we're seeing in purchase agreements can change, especially if you bought 2 years ago. So I will go through with them, a purchase agreement and highlight which parts of it are the important parts. And again, I will say that, I know that you've done this before. However, these are the strategic areas. I don't expect you to remember this right away. I'll send you an email follow-up, but I'll talk them through. In an ideal world, these are the kind of important parts.
I think this is really important. So right now we're at a coffee shop with our buyers talking about all the things. So we start with timeline. We start with criteria. Ask criteria, get them set up on a search. You could even do it right there.
Yep.
And then we're talking to them about
Purchase agreement.
maybe the market first. You talk about the market. Here's what's going on in the market.
Yeah.
We just had our, 9 a.m. training. Here's what we're seeing. Wayzata schools. We just had 3. They were,
Yep.
675, 875, and $1,050,000. They were all multiple offers. We saw some waived inspections.
Yep.
So I want to let you know what we're seeing in this market. Major lack of inventory,
Yes.
36% down in listings
Yeah.
that we're seeing right now. So you're educating, whatever that is, educate them on the market. Here's
Yep.
what's going on in the market. Then we're talking about this purchase agreement, right? So everyone should have this printed. We have packets, we have listing and buyer packets. They're just simple white folders.
Yep.
We put customized stickers on the front. We have a bunch of one sheets we put in there,
Yep.
but you should be printing a bunch of these too and highlighting. What I would do is take 3 minutes and go,
Yeah.
well,
It's
3 to
not
5
that,
minutes.
yeah.
Yeah, but go through. So I'd say earnest money. Okay, so here's some options with earnest money. Some people make it non-refundable immediately. Some make it non-refundable after
Yep.
inspection. Typically what we see, but the market is
Yeah.
not typical, is 1%. If you want to look better, then you do more. By the way, earnest money is subtracted from the purchase price. It just shows more skin in the game. If this closes, this is very strategic to offering more.
Yeah.
We've seen people on a $1 million home offer 50,000. Okay. Earnest money because it looks more attractive. So you're going through these items, you're going through closing date. Okay. If they're going to think that they're going to pick the closing date in multiple offers, they're wrong. Like all my offers over the weekend in multiples, they all had the exact closing date that my sellers wanted. So going through all these strategic terms, going through written statement, what does written statement mean? And the new lines of retained by seller or refunded to buyer, looking at those. Okay. So all this seller contributions. Okay.
And I'm always very
Inspections.
careful to when I'm talking about these things to say, hey, FYI, this is what we're seeing this week. So even though I'm telling you that, let's say they're looking in St. Louis Park. Last week we saw average was whatever it was. I don't know, 6 to 8% over asking. I'm always very careful to say that's what we're seeing today. Like when we're talking right now, if we don't find something and we don't write on something for 3 weeks, I'll be telling you something different. So I'm always very careful to protect myself in saying that this is what we're seeing today. So if we're not finding something for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, just know that I could be telling you 10% over. So don't quote me because, buyers, they'll remember things you said, and if they're not writing for 2 months and they're like, well, you told me 4% over was going to get it done. Sure. That was when we met 2 months ago. So that's something that just be really careful about when you're meeting with buyers, that things that you're saying stat wise, data wise, that you're making sure that they understand that that's for current market. And if they're not writing something right away, that very well could change. Someone's not on mute. That's
Will you guys mute? I can't figure out who's not muted. How do you tell?
I don't, usually if you do speaker view, it'll tell us.
Will you look? Also want to say, when you're going through this with people, these are options for the buyers. You're not going to tell people, obviously, but you're educating them. I want to let you know what's going on in the market right now. And I want to let you know your options for when you write.
Yes.
Okay. Because now all of a sudden your buyer loses one. Okay.
Right.
And they're bummed. Okay. So remember how I told you about earnest money? Remember how you only did 1%? Let's look at all these things that you could do next time to look more attractive.
Yes.
I had one over the weekend that didn't quite understand. You and I talked about this recently. They did a pass fail inspection.
Oh my God.
And they wondered why they lost.
Erica,
And they were,
poor Erica.
but I know we deal
On a listing of hers, it was so, they didn't understand why a pass fail was different than no inspection.
it's still an inspection, but this one was contingent on the inspection, right? And we got no inspection. So anyways, all these points is
Very
important that we educate our buyers that they're options. They don't have to do any of them.
Yep.
I wouldn't want to waive an inspection. I will not tell you to waive an inspection. By the way, if they waive an inspection, make sure they fill out the form. There's an EXP form.
Yeah.
I think it's an MLS form that says, hey, I didn't tell you to waive an inspection. I gave you the right for an inspection. You have decided to waive it. We're just educating people. This is important.
Yep.
And I want to say right now we're at a coffee shop again with our buyers, right? But if it doesn't work out to do a coffee shop and you show them a home, bring that packet to a home, show them a home. You have 45 minutes or an hour, whatever that is.
Yep.
Start going through. I'm going to leave you this packet. I want to talk to you about a couple things.
Yep.
Whatever you got to do, if it's standing outside, I mean, the thing is,
Yeah.
the presentations, I mean, the presentations I've done randomly.
It doesn't have to be pretty. And one thing that I always do is let's say that this is after a coffee shop, or to Kelly's point, maybe it's at the showing because you didn't have time to meet with them. I'm always sending them a recap email afterwards saying, you know, here's what your to-dos are, here's what my to-dos are, here's what next steps are. Because I like to put, again, everything in writing and everything back in one place. So should there ever be discrepancies on what I was telling them or kind of what the process is, we can kind of revert it back to, nope, here were the things that we were telling you, here are the things that we're seeing, and just kind of regroup.
I like that you do that after. I think that's really professional. And I think it's a nice touch. And also too, like a lot of these notes, they're templates. We create a template, you copy and paste it, and then you customize it a little bit for them. Right. So we talked about the purchase agreement. Here are the 8 things or whatever they are. Lenders. Okay. So let's go on that. And whatever that is, you're doing that after. So I love that. Okay. So we talked about like being there with them. At some point, you got to like start showing homes, but at some point it's really important to have this covered so they know how to write offers. Because as a listing agent, I'm seeing the people that are educating their people on how to write offers and those that aren't. So it's like,
well, just saves you time too. It saves us time on the front end when they know what to expect. So when it comes to writing an offer, they're not like, well, now what? And then, I mean, obviously you can go through it at that time, but at least when we're moving, we're like, okay, remember earnest money, blah, 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 all the things.
It is so important because a lot of times when you're writing an offer, then it's quick and then they're overwhelmed. They're like, oh, I don't want to write. So you got to have that talk. The last thing I would make sure that you're talking about too, obviously your value proposition, how you're different to work with. Okay. One of our value propositions, and when you go, is like, you know about off-market properties and you've placed 3 people in off-market properties in the last, 2 months?
A couple weeks.
So we are hustling as a team. We are finding off-market properties. We know about them because I'm the listing agent in a ton of homes right now. So we bring that value. We do not overpromise. Do not overpromise. I cannot overpromise you. I'm just letting you know, I work really hard. I work 24/7, 7 days a week, which is whatever, but we're trying to find you homes. Every once in a while, I'm able to find some off-market properties that I'll let you know about. So I think it's important to whatever, that's not your only value proposition. And then the other thing I just want to say is too, when you're setting people up on a search, at some point, you have to talk about how my goal is to get you under contract to help you understand this purchase agreement. And I don't know how you say it, but not show you more than 10 homes. Like if I'm doing my job, you take it off them because they're going to want to see everything in the world. And then you're going to quit your job. You're like, I don't want to be a realtor anymore. Oh my God, I am burnt out, right? So you got to say so I put it on them and say, if I'm doing my job, I know your criteria and I should be showing you 5 to 10 homes and we should be under contract. That's my goal. If I'm doing a good job. So then if somebody shows you something and it's not even in the right city or school district, if they told you these are important, you're like, that's not the right school, whatever it is. Okay.
They start to feel, at least in my experience, if you're setting the proper expectations up front and you are actively like keeping them on track and keeping the whole thing together. In my experience, my buyers start to feel bad if they think they're seeing more homes than they should, or if they think that they're sending me a home that's outside of their criteria. Like they will actively say like, "Ooh, we feel like Sarah's going to fire us because we're seeing so many houses." And I'm like, guys, I will tell you if you're starting to see too many homes, or I will tell you if we're starting to get derailed, because it's not ideal for anybody. So I have found that if you set the proper expectations and you do everything kind of the way that we're talking about, that they kind of say what you're thinking for you. They kind of start to be like, oh God, are we seeing too many homes? Like how many homes are we supposed to see until we have found something? And then that's when I say, well, no, we're actually like right on track. The average,
But the fact that they're conscious about that means that you had some good conversations that I'm not going to show you a million homes.
Right.
Like that's,
I usually say that if we are actively looking, and again, this is situational. It also depends on the inventory, it depends on, a lot of things. But I usually tell our buyers that if we're actively looking and we're all doing our part, if I'm doing my job and we're actively looking, that it doesn't usually take our buyers more than 2 to 4 weeks to find something. And that's also, again, situational. It depends on the amount of inventory. But if we're doing everything that we should, it takes on average 2 to 4 weeks. And then they kind of subconsciously know that, okay, if we're actively looking and it's beyond a month, then like something's not right here. So I don't usually say a number of homes, just because if someone only wants to see 2 homes and rights, and I have previously said that we'll show people 10 to 12 homes and they're like, oh shoot, should we see 8 more homes? Or like, is it weird if I want to write on this after only 2 homes? So I usually say a timeline. So then they don't compare themselves to other people. So then if we, in the span of like 2 weeks, only see 2 homes and they want to write, great. Rather than them say, well, gosh, it seems like other people see 10 homes and I've seen 2 or 3. Like, is that weird if I'm already finding something? Like, no, that means we all did our job.
Cool. Setting expectations.
Yeah.
Okay. The one other thing I want to say when you're talking to them coffee or wherever that is talking about lenders. A lot of times people come with a lender. I'd say, I don't know, half the time it feels like people come with a lender and then it's a big bank. And, it's like, oh, we know that sometimes there's problems, right? So you got to be real with people. You don't want to be pushy with your lenders, but I think it's always important to give lenders, and be real. Like, just so we find that this big bank might not be available on the weekend and we need our lenders to call and advocate for you in multiple offers. I need a lender who on a Saturday night is going to say, Mary and whatever are awesome buyers to work with. Their assets, income, and employment have been verified. They are all the way through underwriting. I've worked with them a million times. You need people to advocate. So as a listing agent, I ask every lender, not every lender is available. You got to have lenders that are available. It makes so much sense. That's part of it makes
totally. Well, and we also feel like that's like, we also feel like that's just a given, right? That like the people that are on our team are going to be making those calls and advocating for our clients.
Otherwise, we don't recommend them as a lender.
But
they have to be available.
It's not the average, which is like kind of, but to Kelly's point, we never want to be pushy with who we're recommending, because sometimes people come and they, it's their parents' recommendation. They've used them multiple times. We usually just say, just have the conversation with another person. Again, we want you to feel comfortable with every person throughout the process. Just have a second conversation just to make sure that you have all the information that you need and that they can't recommend something that your other person didn't think of. If after talking to our recommended lender, you want to stick with your person, totally fine. But we ultimately just want to make sure that you are best represented and that you have every best person in every piece. And if we just want to make sure that you have all of those people.
Yeah. And let's say you lose, and let's say you write an offer and lender wasn't available to do that, then they might switch. So you just got to educate them. It's always their choice. Okay. So that was coffee appointment. So now coffee appointment is done. Real world is you get them on a search, you show them properties. When you're showing properties, you're always educating them. Okay. So this is what we're seeing in the market right now. This is what we're doing. Okay. So then you're educating them. I'm going to try to wrap up in a sec because we have our team meeting after this. Okay. So, okay. I just want to make sure we get to everything.
That's a good point though. I can touch on super quick. So every showing I would say that I am having with buyers post coffee or post phone appointment, every showing is another rapport building opportunity. So don't just show the home. Don't just open the door and be like, what, do you like it? Like, yes, no. Use it as an opportunity to, what'd you do over the weekend? Like, what, like, blah, 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 just build rapport with them, because the more they trust you, the easier it's going to be. And the more that you guys like each other, it's the easier it's going to be. So use the showing opportunities, not just to look at the homes, but to build rapport with them. Like, just whether it's, I don't know, the paint color. Oh God, I just painted my house this, like, whatever it is, use it as an opportunity to become friends with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, love it. Love it. You're good at that. And like all of a sudden Sarah will send a picture and you're like sitting on a couch or
It's
something
like at their
with
house.
with their what dog? What kind of dog?
He's a Great Dane. I just got a
with
picture from the other
Great
day.
Dane on her lap. I'm like, that was not a lap dog.
Yeah.
Okay, but anyways, yes, that's important. I'm going to keep moving on here. So, showing properties, writing an offer. So offer presentation. Obviously, we talked through that. How you present an offer to the listing agent matters.
Okay.
I've talked to this in other courses. I'm not going to go through this like complete, but how that email that you have that goes to the listing agent matters. How you put a purchase agreement together in a nice PDF with not a million attachments on it matters. Okay. So we have a system on our team. I think the order matters. You're not sending them commission
Oh
statement.
God, no.
I got one of those. I got some
No.
random buyer stuff. It's a tidied up in a nice little package.
I have my
PDF.
order. I have my order. I have my order of my PDF. I mean, I think this is a standard for most of us, but maybe it's not. I have my order of my PDF. I have my order of my body of my email. I have my order of, I hit send on the offer, and then I call the listing agent. I don't expect them to answer. And then I shoot them a text, and then I have the lender call. So it's a whole thing.
A whole thing. So know what your system is. You can have an email in your notes. Again, we have all these templates, right? So you have a template. Make sure that email has bullet points. Do not have long paragraphs that they have to read, but
No.
bullet points is really nice. Price, inspection, no closing costs, whatever that is. All those main points, have them on there. Have a nice tidied up email followed by your PDF. I believe I like things really orderly, right?
Yep.
And so do you.
Yep.
So I think the order of it, now we didn't talk about buyer love letters, and I'm not going to go on a huge spiel about that because some people are like, oh, aren't they illegal? Well,
Yes.
so I'd be talking to your buyers, whether, about buyer love letters, and that's if they do one. And as long, if it's appropriate, whatever, I'm not going to go into it, but that should be the first thing. The first thing on there. Okay.
Built in.
And we've talked about them before, whatever. That should be the first thing on there. And then close after that, we have a team sheet, something like this, that basically says that will be Sarah, that will be whoever's on the team. This is our closing team, and that's our transaction coordinator. Our team is committed, responsive, and reliable. A smooth transaction is our highest priority. We hope to work with you and your team. So this, not a lot of people do. I mimicked this from somebody. I thought that is really nice and professional.
Yep.
So this goes in there, and then I know that seller is going to see it. So we have buyer love letter, we have this, and then we have the purchase agreement. Lender approval should be in the beginning. We also do a copy of the MLS listing, the one page, not too long. And then obviously the order of your purchase agreement. Okay.
Yep.
Make sure it's in order. The association stuff is in the back. The arbitration is in the back. The seller's disclosures are in the back. The purchase agreement is first. What else am I forgetting? Whatever it is, any addendums, they're in the back. Okay. So make sure you're not forgetting anything. Agents sometimes forget things. They don't fill out. Make sure you know your purchase agreements.
I will say, if you are submitting for on a listing where the agent has in supplements that there is a cover sheet that they want you to fill out, make sure you're filling it out. As annoying as it is, make sure you fill it out, because if you don't fill it out, that's the first thing they're going to see. And that's the first thing that they're going to say, well, why didn't they take the time to fill it out? Obviously, they either aren't detail oriented, or they don't care, or they're lazy. So if it's as annoying as it is, just do it.
Always look at agent remarks.
Yeah.
Can I tell you the amount of times people have to talk to me on the phone because they want to know the ideal closing date? It is on agent remarks every time. So you're wasting my time.
And
Don't be an annoying buyer's agent, though. You have to, if you're calling the listing agent, they're getting bombarded all weekend long with calls. Make sure your questions are thoughtful and they're not already answered on the agent remarks. Okay.
100%. And if you're calling to ask, so one thing that, again, and this seems like common sense, but it's not, is if you're asking about close date and it's not in agent remarks and it's not anywhere, when you're calling, say, hey, I looked in agent remarks and it's not there, in the event that they asked their TC to put it there and the TC didn't. So make sure that you're saying like, I already did my due diligence and it's not there. That's why I'm calling.
And I want to make this as attractive as
Yes.
possible. We want to win this.
Yeah.
And when you're talking to, if you get that agent on the phone, there is an art to talking, obviously,
Oh, yeah.
right? And finding out information. They're not supposed to tell you information, but do they tell you information? A lot of times they'll tell you information like, hey, I want to make this as attractive as possible. This is totally the home that they want. Their kids have already picked out the bedroom. So what do I need to do? Are you okay with an escalation clause? We're going to write really high, but we don't want to lose.
Yep.
And, I have opinions on escalation clauses. Sorry, I had one over the weekend that was $1,000. This was almost a $900,000 home. It escalated $1,000 over the highest offer. No, it was 2,000. It wasn't enough. They're like, we don't care about 2,000. We'll take the one without an inspection. So be careful, whatever. I just went on a tangent.
You can ask the listing agent for the comps they used. If you're going to be doing, if it's an agent that'll talk to you, you can ask them like, hey, we're doing an escalation clause. And for my buyer's purposes, do you have your comps that you use so I can show them that like value is there? Just whatever.
As long as it's easy for them.
Yeah.
Don't make them do too
Yeah.
much work, but as long as it's easy for them and they have it. But if there's anything else, hey, what's anything else, listing agent, that's important to your seller or you? Because if you ask me that, I want written statement and I want retained by seller or refunded or whatever,
Well,
retained
like
by seller.
you don't like escalation clauses as much. So
yeah, I mean, if you get all escalation clauses, nothing escalates.
right. So I think
Right?
that's good to know though, like, cause if I'm a buyer's agent and I'm calling and talking to you, like, what do you want to see?
Yeah.
It's helpful to know, I don't love escalation clauses. So come in with your best foot forward. I'm going to then give that to my buyers and say, hey, they're okay with escalation clauses. It sounds like the listing agent doesn't love it because if there's no escalation, if everything is an escalation clause, it's not going to escalate. So let's come in higher than we were going to, knowing that that's where her mindset is. And she's going to be the one coaching the sellers.
Just make sure you are asking good questions. You look at the agent remarks. You're not asking stuff that's already on there. Okay. You get better and better at it. And then you win more and more because you win a lot. The last thing I wanted to say before I wrap up, let's see if I can remember, is when you lose, it's really important to try to find out information. There were 7 offers. I'm not supposed to know this, but I know that they waived the inspection and I can see that on the MLS because it's already pending.
Yes.
Whatever that is. So now they know, oh, I'm not going to waive an inspection. I understand. But now you've lost 3 or 4 and then we see people waive them, or you do a walk and talk inspection.
Yep.
You have an inspector on speed dial or whatever that is, and they're doing a walk and talk. There are solutions for this. So, okay, that's what we are going to wrap up with.
Yep.
Okay. So there you go. All about buyers with Sara Melby Thomas, total expert with buyers. So I hope that was helpful.
I hope so too. There's a lot. I mean, and like we said, I mean, we could go on and there's so many different like side conversations on things.
But you have to get out there. You have to be thoughtful about how you're doing this. This is fun right now, but there's a major lack of inventory. So be thoughtful in how you're working with your buyers. Okay, guys, Kelly Brown Homes team, stay on here. We have a little team meeting after. Everyone else, thanks for being on. Bye, guys.